Hello, my name is Alfred Brock. This presentation is entitled The History of Manufacturing in the City of Wayne. It is intended to be an overview of the history of manufacturing in the city of Wayne, Michigan. It is an overview because the subject matter is wide and deep. There has been and still is a lot of manufacturing activity here in our city of Wayne. Manufacturing is defined as the making of goods or wares by manual labor or by machinery. In our modern era, this refers to work when it is especially done on a large scale. For example, the manufacture of automobiles, the manufacture of airplanes, the manufacture of firearms, the manufacture of cornmeal, the manufacture of lumber, all of which, by the way, have been manufactured in the city of Wayne. Like most words in the English language, manufacturing has other meanings, like the making or producing of anything by hand, such as furs, homespun, and other items. Again, these also have been manufactured in the city of Wayne. One aspect of this overview will be a third meaning behind the word manufacturing, and that is the general thing or material manufactured known as the product. For example, metalworking is an important manufacture to the support and security of the nation. As we proceed, I hope you will find, as I have, that the manufacturers of the city of Wayne have and remain manufacturers which are important to the economy of our great state of Michigan and play a part in our national economy of the United States of America, and so have an imprint on our world. Let's get started. Material presented here was gathered from various sources, including but not limited to the City of Wayne Historical Museum, Images of America, the City of Wayne by Valerie Latzman, Personal Anecdote, the Michigan Historical Museum, the Wayne Public Library, the Charter Township of Canton Public Library, the Library of Congress, various resources from the Internet, including digital photographs and writings, the archives of the Unistruck Corporation, the archives of the Bendix Corporation, the Library of Michigan in Lansing, the Harvard Business School Library, the Heritage Research Center Limited, and the HathiTrust Digital Library. During this discourse, I will make 3 brief digressions touching on topics that are connected to this topic, but not directly in line with the discussion. I will identify each one of these digressions as they occur. The general flow of information to be presented is shown here. From handmade goods, trapping, farming, preparation of furs, foodstuffs or shipment, to shipping, receiving activities, lumber, lumber mill, to hardware, trade, general supplies and grain milling, industry buggies to cars to airplanes, grain milling, building materials, metallurgy, various consumer goods, and finally, to today. This is the history of manufacturing in the city of Wayne, but as an overview I am going to reach back in the past so that we can have a framework of understanding for what took place. I have found that when telling a tale as intricate and wonderful as any aspect of life in the city of Wayne, that the best place to begin is at the beginning. Our starting point will be prehistory, here in what was to become our great state of Michigan. We will skip right ahead from the creation of the universe to the Pleistocene epoch. The Pleistocene epoch is typically defined for polite conversation as the time period that began about 1.8 million years ago and lasted until about 11,700 years ago. The most recent ice age occurred then, as glaciers covered huge parts of the world. During this time there is evidence that mankind was spreading across the face of the earth. Some historians and paleontologists surmise that humans first entered North America during this time period. Whether this is the case or not may soon one day discover. During this time, as the ice retreated, this area here and the entire state of Michigan were host to a number of creatures whose names and bones we know, but whom we have no recollection of because they are all gone. Some of these creatures were the Jefferson mammoth, the mastodon, and the woodland muskox. I am mentioning these creatures as a preamble to what happened next. Pictured here are the ancient works of Aztlan. This was a city to the west of here in Wisconsin that is attributed to the Mississippian culture, but has recently attracted the attention of archaeologists investigating the true extent of the Aztec Empire. This city and others like it were scattered throughout the Midwest and allow us a glimpse of the prehistorical, or times before written records were kept, in this part of the country. Aztlan reportedly was first settled around the year 900. The settlements like this one that occurred in Michigan, and not too far from here, are characterized by the construction of mounds, stockades, and houses, by decorated pottery and agricultural practices. There are also elements of the woodland culture to be found here. This is not all, however, of what was going on. The residents had long-distance trading relationships with other settlements, linked by their use of the rivers for transportation and an extensive series of trails. Items found at the settlement and many others include copper from Michigan's Upper Peninsula, shells from the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, and stones such as Mill Creek chert from other areas of the Midwest. It is the occurrence of these items fashioned from copper, pottery, furs, and other finished goods that we can point to as the earliest time for manufacturing to have occurred in this area right here, close to other settlements of this type, and directly between the western nations, the eastern nations, and the large empires to the south. Time passed quickly, and the homespun and manufactured goods traded locally by the Native Americans among themselves fell out of favor as European manufactured goods appeared. Along with the Indian Wars and the tragedy of disease, these early efforts passed away, and for all intents and purposes left much of the area empty of any human presence. It was into this new wilderness that the fur trappers began their adventures, trading with those who were left as the tribes reorganized themselves. The European trappers and their international trading companies moved through the area. We can at this time state that the trappers were manufacturers as they prepared the furs and pelts they collected. Much of their produce, however, was not consumed here and sent east to the markets there and across the seas. The French fur trade spanned 1634 to 1763 and coincided with the Indian Wars that took so much. In fact, clearly for a century and a half, Michigan's life centered in the fur trade. Beaver was abundant here, as was the marten and many other fur-bearing animals. People in Europe did not think of beaver as an animal, but as a hat. The beaver hat was in fashion from 1625 to the early 1800s in most of Europe, and here is a coachman's hat. In the 19th century, much business was practiced in local public houses, and local tavern scenes like the one pictured here probably took place from time to time. Horse trading, grain trading, and lumber business would have been carried out in a manner similar to this, if not in such a spirited fashion. It was this business activity that took place here at local public houses due to the fine roads and gatehouse, access to water, and to the rich farmlands round about that attracted the attention of settlers who had a long view of things. One of those people that was attracted here was Ezra Derby. It wasn't long before even the place bore his name, Derby's Corners, and things started to look a little different. And here we are, what we've all been waiting for. What with all the starting and stopping and booms and busts that were spread out over thousands of years, it is kind of refreshing to have the opportunity to finally say, then Ezra Derby showed up. This is, of course, said with all due respect for all the hard work and energy that went into making Ezra Derby's debut possible, but it is with his appearance that this presentation truly begins. Prior to Mr. Derby arriving, the work that was going on in the city of Wayne was centered around the dry goods trade, transportation, and farming. There were certain things lacking that Mr. Derby and his friends saw as an opportunity. Having settled in the place and started his own business, he went about setting up the city of Wayne's first official manufactory, beyond homespun and all the goods made by hand for individual use. Yes, Mr. Derby took some of his land and built upon it a structure into which Wayne's first blacksmith would take up shop, and so it began. The city of Wayne and the history of manufacturing here is unique for something very special. It is a perfect example of the processes that took place across the United States as settlements spread. What happened here is an accurate reflection of the American experience. As we saw, fur trapping, Michigan's first big industry, gave way in the mid-19th century to commercial lumbering, which Mr. Derby most certainly had some hand in. Now as for the mining of copper and iron in the state, the direct relations to these ores took place later and are exemplified by the Ennet foundry, but that comes later also. From the earliest days of settlements, sawmills were usually built when a community was founded, and in this, Wayne followed the established pattern and built on it to make it better. This ends part 1 of this presentation.